The loudest voice rarely wins. It's the quiet one with purpose that conquers. Silence is power. When you speak less, people listen more. When you observe more, you outmaneuver the crowd. In a world addicted to noise, your restraint becomes your weapon. But if you reveal too much, you give away your advantage. True strength is silent. True power is felt, not shouted. Will you discipline your voice and sharpen your actions, or keep spilling your strength through needless words? The world is already watching. In just a few moments, you'll discover how silence becomes your secret weapon to win bigger by speaking less and doing more. The power of purposeful silence. Have you ever noticed how the most powerful people in a room are often those who speak the least? They listen intently, observe carefully, and when they finally open their mouths, everyone leans in to hear what they have to say. This is no coincidence. This is the power of purposeful silence at work. In a world that celebrates noise, that rewards the loudest voice, that constantly demands your attention and your words, silence has become a forgotten art. But make no mistake, silence is not the absence of power. It is power itself. The ability to remain quiet when others are clamoring to be heard is a sign of supreme self-restraint and inner strength. Think about the great minds who have shaped our world. Did they rise to prominence by constantly announcing their intentions? No, they worked in focused silence until their results spoke volumes. Purposeful silence allows you to conserve your mental energy. Every word you speak costs you something: attention, focus, energy that could be directed toward your goals. When you choose to speak less, you automatically create space to do more. This isn't about becoming uncommunicative. It's about becoming intentional with your words and your energy. The power of silence extends beyond just restraining your speech. It encompasses the disciplined quieting of negative self-talk, the silencing of excuses, and the muting of distractions that pull you away from your purpose. When you embrace purposeful silence, you begin to hear the whispers of opportunity that are drowned out by constant chatter. You may wonder, how do I harness this power of silence in my own life? The answer is simple but profound. Begin by listening twice as much as you speak. When in meetings, resist the urge to immediately voice your opinion. Instead, absorb what others are saying, process it fully, and then, only if necessary, offer your wisdom. Notice how people respond differently to your words when they come from a place of thoughtful silence, rather than reactive speech. Muhammad Ali, one of the greatest boxers in history, once said that the fight is won or lost far away from witnesses, in the gym, on the road, long before he danced under those lights. His most significant victories weren't won with his famous wordplay, but in the silent, grueling hours of training when no one was watching. Embrace the power of purposeful silence. Let your actions crescendo while your words remain measured and few. Remember that a waterfall makes noise, but the deep ocean is silent, and it is in the ocean's depths where the true power lies. Your journey to success begins not with proclamations, but with quiet determination. Start today. Speak less, listen more. Work diligently in silence, and watch as your results begin to make all the noise you'll ever need. Why silence matters. Have you ever stopped to notice just how noisy your life has become? Not just the audible noise, though there's plenty of that, but the constant barrage of information, opinions, and distractions that flood your consciousness every waking moment. Endless meetings and incessant chatter have created a world where silence has become a rare commodity. This noise isn't just annoying, it's costing you your success. When your mind is constantly bombarded with information, it becomes impossible to think deeply, to reflect meaningfully, to plan strategically. The noise of modern life has become the greatest thief of your potential, but the problem goes deeper than just productivity. This constant noise affects your very ability to make good decisions. When you're always reacting to the latest emergency, responding to the most recent request, or getting pulled into another conversation, you lose the space needed for strategic thinking. The noise crowds out the silence required for wisdom to emerge. John F. Kennedy would regularly schedule thinking time in his presidential calendar, blocks where he would retreat from the chaos of the Oval Office to reflect and consider the most pressing issues facing the nation. These weren't luxuries, they were necessities for clear-headed leadership. Create physical spaces that invite silence. Even if it's just a corner of your home where you can sit undisturbed for 15 minutes, having a dedicated place for quiet reflection can transform your thinking. The great industrialist Andrew Carnegie had a special room in his home where he would retreat to think without distraction, a practice that contributed significantly to his extraordinary success. Silence matters because it is only in silence that certain crucial mental processes can occur. It's in silence that you connect disparate ideas to form innovation. It's in silence that you reflect on your true priorities rather than simply responding to whatever seems urgent. It's in silence that you can hear your own wisdom rather than constantly absorbing the opinions of others. The noise of modern life wants to rob you of your greatest asset, your ability to think clearly and act decisively. Don't surrender this power willingly. Fight for silence. Protect it as the precious resource it is. For in a world that seems to value noise above all, the ability to cultivate silence has become a tremendous competitive advantage. Choose silence strategically and watch as your mental clarity, your decisiveness, and ultimately your results begin to separate you from the noisy, distracted masses. Observing before acting. Have you ever noticed how the most successful people seldom reveal their hand immediately? They watch, they wait, they observe, and then they act with precision and impact. This is no accident. This is silence used as a strategy, and it's one of the most powerful approaches you can adopt in your quest for achievement. When you enter a new situation, whether it's a business negotiation, a social gathering, or even starting a new job, there's immense pressure to prove yourself immediately, to speak up, to show what you know. But this impulse, while natural, often leads to premature action based on incomplete information. The strategic use of silence gives you the advantage of gathering crucial intelligence before making your move. Consider the chess master who studies the board intently before touching a piece, or the skilled negotiator who allows the other party to speak first, revealing valuable information about their position. This strategic silence isn't passive. It's intensely active, a concentrated gathering of data that will inform more effective action. The great military strategist Sun Tzu understood this principle well when he advised that all warfare is based on deception. By remaining silent about your intentions while carefully observing your competition, you gain a tremendous tactical advantage. This same principle applies in business, in personal development, and in virtually every competitive arena. Mahatma Gandhi, despite being known for his powerful influence, was often silent during critical meetings, speaking only when necessary and with carefully chosen words. This strategic use of silence made his statements all the more impactful when he did choose to speak. So how do you implement this strategy in your own life? Start by approaching new situations with the mindset of an anthropologist, observing cultural norms, power dynamics, and unstated rules before asserting yourself. In meetings, practice being the second or third person to speak rather than the first, allowing you to build upon others' ideas from a position of greater information. When you enter negotiations, resist the urge to fill uncomfortable silences. Often the person who speaks first in response to silence concedes valuable ground. Train yourself to be comfortable with these quiet moments, using them to observe reactions and gather intelligence. The strategy of silence also applies to how you handle your successes and plans. When you're working toward an important goal, there's often social pressure to announce your intentions publicly. Yet research consistently shows that talking about your plans gives you a premature sense of accomplishment, reducing the likelihood you'll put in the work to actually achieve them. The most determined achievers often work in silence, letting their results speak for themselves when the time is right. Strategic silence gives you the space to observe patterns that others miss, to identify opportunities that remain invisible to those too busy talking, and to act from a position of superior knowledge when the moment is right. It transforms you from a reactive participant into a strategic player who shapes circumstances rather than merely responding to them. Embrace silence as your strategy. Watch more. Speak less, gather intelligence before making your move, and when you do act, do so with the full power of comprehensive understanding behind you. The connection between silence and self-mastery. Have you ever wondered why the truly great masters of any field seem to possess an unusual degree of composure? There's a profound connection between silence and self-mastery that has been recognized by achievers throughout history. When you learn to embrace silence, you begin the journey toward mastering yourself, and self-mastery is the prerequisite for mastering anything else in life. The path to self-mastery begins with self-awareness, and genuine self-awareness emerges only in silence. It's in those quiet moments when you're not performing for others or reacting to external stimuli that you can truly see yourself as you are. Your strengths and weaknesses, your genuine desires and fears, your authentic voice, these reveal themselves not in the noise of social interaction, but in the silence of honest self-reflection. Consider how difficult it is to hear your own thoughts when you're constantly surrounded by the opinions of others. The habit of external noise drowns out the subtle voice of your deeper wisdom. But when you create space for silence, you begin to distinguish between the thoughts that are truly yours and those you've simply absorbed from your environment. This discernment is essential for authentic achievement. The great industrialist Andrew Carnegie practiced daily periods of silence and reflection, which he credited for many of his most important business insights. He understood that the clarity needed for major decisions couldn't emerge amid constant conversation and activity. But the relationship between silence and self-mastery goes beyond just clarity of thought. It extends to emotional self-regulation, perhaps the most crucial skill for long-term success in any endeavor. When you practice sitting with silence, you simultaneously practice sitting with yourself and your emotions without immediately reacting to them. Think about how quickly most people respond when criticized. There's an immediate impulse to defend, to explain, or to counterattack. But what if instead you met criticism with momentary silence? This pause, this small space between stimulus and response, is where your power lies. It's in this silence that you can choose your response rather than being driven by automatic reactions. So how do you develop this connection between silence and self-mastery in your own life? Begin by scheduling regular periods of solitude, time when you're completely disconnected from external input, no music, no conversation, just you and your thoughts. This practice, uncomfortable at first, gradually builds your capacity for deep self-awareness. Next, practice the pause, the deliberate insertion of silence before responding to challenging situations. When faced with provocation, train yourself to take 3 deep breaths before speaking. This simple habit creates space for your higher faculties to engage rather than allowing your reptilian brain to drive reactive behavior. The ultimate expression of this connection is the ability to maintain inner silence even amid external chaos. This doesn't mean becoming unresponsive. Rather, it means that your responses emerge from a place of centered awareness rather than triggered reactivity. When you achieve this level of self-mastery, you become virtually unstoppable because circumstances no longer dictate your actions. Your aligned purpose does. The silent self-mastery connection creates a powerful upward spiral. As you practice silence, you develop greater self-mastery. As your self-mastery increases, you become more comfortable with silence. This virtuous cycle continues, progressively setting you apart from those who remain slaves to external stimuli and internal impulses. Embrace silence as the pathway to self-mastery. In a world full of reactive individuals, become the responsive one. In a culture of impulsiveness, cultivate deliberate action. Let silence be the forge in which you hammer out your unshakable character, how the quiet mind discovers opportunity. Have you ever had your best idea while taking a shower, going for a walk, or just sitting quietly with your thoughts? This is no coincidence. There's a direct relationship between cultivating a quiet mind and discovering exceptional opportunities that others miss completely. In today's world, why do some people consistently find opportunities where others see nothing? The difference lies not in access to information, but in the ability to process that information in unique ways. And this happens primarily in states of mental quietude. When your mind is constantly buzzing with noise, whether from external sources or your own incessant internal dialogue, you operate in what psychologists call narrow focus mode. This mental state is excellent for executing tasks, but terrible for making connections between disparate ideas or noticing subtle patterns. The quiet mind, by contrast, activates what's known as diffuse thinking, a relaxed mental state where your brain makes unexpected associations and generates insights that logical thinking cannot produce. Albert Einstein claimed that words and language played practically no role in his mechanism of thought. Instead, he relied on images, feelings, and musical forms, allowing ideas to come in visual and muscular form before translating them into conventional language. This process required long periods of contemplative silence, what might look like doing nothing to an outside observer. So how do you cultivate the quiet mind that discovers hidden opportunities? First, you must recognize that opportunity detection requires a different mental state than opportunity execution. While execution benefits from focus and intensity, discovery thrives in relaxed awareness. Schedule regular periods in your day where you're not trying to accomplish anything specific. Time for your mind to wander and make unexpected connections. Practice what Eastern traditions call mindfulness, the art of being fully present without judgment. This isn't about emptying your mind, but about quieting the constant evaluation and categorization that normally occupies your thinking. When you simply observe without immediately analyzing, you begin to notice subtleties and connections that your analytical mind would typically filter out. Create physical environments that support mental quietude. The constant ping of visual clutter and background noise all tax your brain's processing power, leaving less capacity for the subtle pattern recognition that reveals opportunity. Use strategic incompletion to activate your quiet mind. When working on a complex problem, deliberately step away from it before it's solved. Go for a walk, take a shower, or simply sit quietly. Your subconscious mind continues to work on the problem, often delivering solutions when you least expect them. The quiet mind discovers opportunity because it moves beyond the noise of consensus thinking. When everyone is looking in the same direction, talking about the same trends, chasing the same apparent opportunities, the real breakthroughs lie elsewhere, in the spaces between established categories, in the questions not yet asked, in the problems others have given up on. Cultivate your quiet mind as your greatest competitive advantage. In a world that increasingly automates routine thinking, the premium on creative insight and novel connections will only grow. The opportunities of tomorrow will be discovered not by those who process information the fastest, but by those who can see the patterns that emerge only in silence. Building inner strength through disciplined silence. Have you ever noticed that the truly strong individuals rarely feel the need to announce their strength? They don't posture, they don't boast, they simply carry themselves with a quiet confidence that speaks volumes. This inner strength doesn't develop through constant self-promotion. It emerges through disciplined silence, a practice that builds mental and emotional fortitude in ways that nothing else can. When most people feel emotional discomfort, anxiety, uncertainty, frustration, their immediate reaction is to escape that discomfort through distraction. They turn on the television, call a friend, or find some other way to fill the silence. But in doing so, they rob themselves of the very experiences that would build their inner strength. Disciplined silence is about developing the capacity to sit with discomfort without immediately seeking relief. It's about training yourself to face uncertainty without needing immediate answers. It's about building the emotional muscles that will carry you through life's inevitable challenges with dignity and resolve. Consider what happens when you're alone with your thoughts and feelings, with no distractions to dull their intensity. At first, it may feel overwhelming. Your mind races. Uncomfortable emotions surface. But if you stay with this experience, if you practice disciplined silence, something remarkable begins to happen. You develop what psychologists call emotional non-reactivity, the ability to experience strong feelings without being controlled by them. Practice maintaining silence in situations where you would normally fill the void with words. When criticized, resist the urge to immediately defend yourself. When praised, resist the impulse to elaborate on your accomplishments. When faced with a problem, resist the temptation to immediately verbalize it to others. These small acts of verbal restraint progressively build your capacity for emotional self-regulation. The practice of disciplined silence also builds your tolerance for ambiguity. your ability to function effectively even when you don't have all the answers, or when the path forward isn't entirely clear. This tolerance is essential for leadership and innovation, both of which require comfort with the unknown. Perhaps most importantly, disciplined silence builds the inner strength to stand alone when necessary. In a world that exerts tremendous pressure to conform, to follow the crowd, to echo popular sentiment, the ability to maintain your center in silence gives you the fortitude to follow your own convictions, even when they diverge from mainstream opinion. Vince Lombardi, the legendary football coach, was known for his ability to maintain disciplined silence when necessary, evaluating his players and situations carefully before taking decisive action. This inner strength allowed him to make unpopular but correct decisions that ultimately led to unprecedented success. Build your inner strength through disciplined silence. Train yourself to be comfortable in the absence of noise. Develop the fortitude to face your inner world without flinching. For it is only when you've built this inner strength that your outer actions will carry the power to truly transform your life and the world around you. Action over words. Have you ever met someone who constantly talks about what they're going to do? They have grand plans, impressive goals, and endless explanations about their future success. Yet months and years pass, and these same individuals remain exactly where they started, full of words but empty of results. Then there are those rare individuals who say little about their ambitions but consistently take action that moves them forward. These are the silent achievers, and they understand a fundamental truth. Real power lies in action, not in words. The world is filled with talkers, but achievement belongs to the doers. When you focus your energy on taking consistent action rather than discussing your intentions, you create momentum that no amount of conversation can generate. This silent approach to achievement serves you in multiple ways, not least by protecting your goals from the subtle sabotage that often comes from premature sharing. Psychology research has consistently shown that talking about your goals triggers a premature sense of completeness. When you receive social acknowledgement for discussing what you intend to do, your brain registers a reward similar to having actually done it. This false sense of progress reduces your motivation to put in the hard work necessary for actual achievement. So how do you become a silent achiever in your own life? Start by adopting a simple rule. For every goal you set, take at least one tangible action before telling anyone about it. This initial step creates real-world momentum and tests your commitment beyond mere words. Next, shift your focus from input to output. Instead of measuring your days by how many meetings you attend or conversations you have, measure them by concrete results produced. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what did I actually create or accomplish today? This output-focused mindset naturally reduces empty talk and increases productive action. Learn to find satisfaction in the doing rather than in discussing the doing. When you derive your sense of progress and accomplishment from actual action rather than others' reactions to your stated intentions, you free yourself from dependency on external validation. The silent achiever understands that energy follows attention. When you focus your attention on talking about your goals, you direct energy toward verbal expression rather than tangible creation. By maintaining silence about your intentions, you naturally redirect that energy toward the actions that produce results. Become a silent achiever in your own life. Let others talk while you act. Let them announce while you advance. Let them seek attention while you seek results. For when all is said and done, and usually much more is said than done, it is your actions, not your words, that will write your legacy, creating your silent mastermind alliance. Have you ever wondered why certain individuals seem to accelerate their success while others with similar talents remain stagnant? Often the difference lies not in their individual capabilities, but in the quality of their associations. The most successful people in any field have mastered the art of creating what we might call a silent mastermind alliance, a carefully selected group of individuals who collectively elevate each other's thinking, performance, and results. This concept of alliance is different from ordinary networking or casual association. A true mastermind alliance involves a meeting of minds, dedicated to a common purpose where the collective intelligence and energy of the group creates something far greater than what any individual could produce alone. And the most powerful of these alliances often operate with a certain quietude, not broadcasting their influence, but steadily amplifying each member's capacity for achievement. The principle behind this phenomenon is simple yet profound. Thoughts are things. They are energetic, and when the thoughts of two or more minds are coordinated in a spirit of harmony toward a definite purpose, they create a third, more powerful force. This third mind emerges from the alliance and cannot be attributed to any single individual. Walt Disney and his brother Roy created one of the most successful entertainment empires in history. Walt's creative vision, combined with Roy's financial acumen, produced something neither could have achieved independently. Their partnership, largely conducted without public fanfare, exemplified the power of complementary minds working in harmony toward shared objectives. So how do you create your own silent mastermind alliance? Begin by identifying what specific values and capabilities would complement your own strengths and compensate for your weaknesses. Unlike superficial networking, which often focuses on quantity of connections, the mastermind principle emphasizes quality and alignment of purpose. Seek individuals who possess not only skills or knowledge you lack, but also the character qualities that support achievement: integrity, persistence, courage, and disciplined thinking. Remember that a true mastermind alliance involves harmony of purpose, and this harmony becomes impossible with individuals whose core values conflict with your own. Once you've identified potential alliance members, approach them with clarity about the mutual benefits such an association would create. The most powerful alliances are always based on reciprocity. Each member both contributes to and derives value from the relationship. Make explicit what you bring to the table and what specific qualities or capabilities you seek from them. Structure your mastermind meetings around specific challenges and opportunities rather than general discussion. Come prepared with well-defined questions or issues where collective thinking would produce superior results. Maintain the focus on actionable insights rather than theoretical abstractions. Practice the art of contribution before extraction. In every interaction with your alliance members, focus first on how you can add value to their thinking or effort. This spirit of generous contribution creates a culture of reciprocity that multiplies the effectiveness of the alliance. Remember that true mastermind alliances operate with a certain silence, not secrecy, but a focus on substance over show. While others announce their networking prowess or drop important names, you'll be quietly leveraging the collective intelligence of your alliance to solve problems and seize opportunities that remain invisible to the crowd. The silent nature of these alliances doesn't mean they lack energy or passion, quite the opposite. It means the energy is channeled toward productive achievement rather than social signaling or self-promotion. The evidence of the alliance's power appears in results, not rhetoric. Create your silent mastermind alliance with intention and care. Cultivate relationships with those who elevate your thinking and challenge your limitations. Contribute generously to their success while drawing upon their wisdom and support. For in this harmonious alliance of minds, you'll discover a source of power that transforms your capacity for achievement in ways you could never accomplish alone. For transforming silence into decisive action. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to move with remarkable precision and impact, making decisions that others can't even comprehend until long afterward? These aren't merely lucky guesses or impulsive choices. They represent the culmination of a process that begins with silence and culminates in decisive action. Understanding how to transform periods of quiet reflection into powerful, decisive moves is one of the most valuable skills you can develop on your path to achievement. Most people make the critical error of believing that action and silence are opposites. They aren't. They're sequential parts of the same process. Silence, the period of observation, reflection, and planning, is the essential predecessor to truly effective action. Without this foundation of silence, action becomes mere reaction, impulsive, uncoordinated, and ultimately ineffective. The greatest achievements in human history have followed this pattern. Periods of apparent inaction where observation and thought accumulate, followed by precise, powerful action at the optimal moment. This rhythm of silence and action creates results that appear almost magical to those who don't understand the process. General George Patton approached military strategy before launching his famous rapid advances across Europe during World War II. He spent countless hours studying terrain maps, analyzing enemy patterns, and contemplating various scenarios. This silent preparation enabled his forces to move with a speed and precision that confounded both allies and enemies alike. So, how do you transform your own silence into decisive action? Begin by recognizing that quality thinking requires uninterrupted time. Block regular periods in your schedule dedicated solely to reflection about your most important goals and challenges. Protect these periods with the same diligence you would any crucial meeting or deadline. During these periods of silence, practice structured thinking. Ask yourself specific questions. What is the actual problem or opportunity here? What information am I missing? What assumptions am I making that might be wrong? What would the ideal outcome look like? What are the minimum steps required to move toward that outcome? Write your thoughts. The act of capturing your thinking on paper forces greater clarity and exposes logical gaps that remain hidden in mental reflection alone. Thomas Edison maintained detailed notebooks documenting his thinking process, allowing him to refine his ideas over time and prevent the repetition of unproductive approaches. Look for what the Japanese call satori, moments of clarity where complexities suddenly resolve into simple principles. These breakthrough insights rarely come while actively struggling with the problem. They emerge when the mind is allowed to process information in silence, often during seemingly unrelated activities. Once you've reached clarity through silence, prepare for decisive action by defining your trigger point, the specific condition or moment when you'll transition from thinking to doing. This predetermined trigger prevents analysis paralysis and ensures you don't miss the optimal window for action. When the moment for action arrives, move with total commitment. Half-hearted implementation undermines even the most brilliant plans. The decisive quality of your action should match the deliberate quality of your silence. This all-in approach creates momentum that carries you through inevitable obstacles. Establish a feedback loop that returns you to periods of silence after significant action. Reflect on what worked, what didn't, and what you've learned. This oscillation between silence and action, between thinking and doing, creates an upward spiral of increasingly effective results. Roger Bannister, who broke the seemingly impossible 4-minute mile barrier, alternated between intensive training and careful analysis of his performance. This rhythmic approach allowed him to systematically eliminate inefficiencies in his running technique until he achieved what many had considered physically impossible. Transform your silence into decisive action. Make your periods of quiet reflection as disciplined as your periods of intense activity. Recognize that the quality of your action will never exceed the quality of the thinking that precedes it. For when silence and action are properly integrated, they create a formidable force that turns aspiration into achievement with remarkable efficiency. Your path to greatness. Have you ever considered that the most profound revolutions don't begin with dramatic declarations or public demonstrations? They start quietly, in the mind of a single individual who chooses to think and act differently from the crowd. This is the nature of the quiet revolution, a personal transformation that changes everything without announcing itself to the world until the results become too significant to ignore. We live in a culture that celebrates noise, that rewards the loudest voice, the most shocking statement, the most dramatic gesture. But true greatness rarely emerges from such clamor. Instead, it develops through a quiet revolution within, a systematic implementation of principles that gradually but inevitably produces extraordinary results. This quiet revolution begins with a fundamental shift in focus, from seeking external validation to pursuing internal excellence. When you stop concerning yourself with how your actions will be perceived and start focusing exclusively on the quality of those actions, you initiate a transformation that will eventually reshape every aspect of your life. Abraham Lincoln, before he became president, he spent years in relative obscurity, educating himself through extensive reading and writing. He didn't announce his ambitions to the world. He simply prepared himself through consistent, quiet improvement. By the time opportunity arrived, his capacity had been built through this internal revolution. So how do you initiate your own quiet revolution? Start by auditing where your energy currently flows. How much of your effort goes toward creating an impression versus creating substance? How often do you speak about what you'll accomplish versus actually taking steps to accomplish it? This honest assessment establishes the baseline from which your revolution will grow. Next, implement the silence-action ratio. For every hour you spend discussing your goals or achievements, invest at least 10 hours in silent, focused work toward those goals. This simple discipline shifts the balance of your energy from expression to creation, from visibility to productivity. Develop what might be called quiet confidence, the unshakable self-assurance that comes not from others' approval, but from your own consistent adherence to high standards. This internal confidence eliminates the need for external validation that drives so much counterproductive behavior. Practice the discipline of private accountability, holding yourself to standards higher than anyone else would impose. This means doing the right thing even when no one is watching, pursuing excellence even when mediocrity would be accepted, and continuing to improve even when you've surpassed everyone around you. Embrace what might be called stealth achievement, the practice of accomplishing significant milestones without drawing attention to them. Rather than stopping to celebrate each success, use each achievement as a stepping stone to the next challenge. This continuous forward motion creates compound growth that eventually produces extraordinary results. Remember that your quiet revolution isn't about isolating yourself from others. It's about engaging with the world from a center of silent strength rather than noisy insecurity. It's about contributing substance in a world often satisfied with symbol. It's about creating lasting impact rather than temporary impression. The greatest achievers in history understood this principle. Their revolutions began quietly, within themselves, before transforming their fields and sometimes the world. They didn't seek to make noise, they sought to make a difference. And in doing so, they discovered the path to true greatness. Begin your quiet revolution today. Speak less. Do more. Build your capacity in silence. Let your results make the noise. For in this seemingly simple shift lies the power to transform not just your results, but your very identity. This is your path to greatness, not through dramatic declarations or public displays, but through the quiet, consistent application of transformative principles that separate the extraordinary from the merely average. Your quiet revolution starts now. The only question is, will you have the courage to embrace it? Influence without noise. Have you ever noticed how some leaders command a room without raising their voice? They don't demand attention, they attract it naturally through their presence and the weight of their carefully chosen words. This is the essence of silent leadership, a powerful approach to influence that doesn't rely on volume or frequency of communication, but on its quality and timing. In a world where leadership is often equated with visibility and verbal dominance, the silent leader stands apart. These individuals understand that true influence doesn't come from talking more than everyone else, but from speaking with purpose, listening with intent, and acting with unwavering conviction. They can create. Their power comes not from how often they speak, but from how deeply they're heard when they do. Silent leadership creates space for others to contribute, innovate, and develop their own capabilities. When a leader isn't constantly filling the air with their own voice, team members naturally step forward, sharing ideas and taking initiative in ways that strengthen the entire organization. This approach multiplies leadership rather than centralizing it. So, how do you develop this capacity for silent leadership? Begin by mastering the art of purposeful communication. Before speaking in any setting, ask yourself 3 questions. Is this necessary? Is this helpful? Is this the right time? This simple filter will immediately distinguish your communication patterns from those who speak reflexively and without clear purpose. Practice what might be called leadership listening, the deliberate use of silence to create space for others to articulate their thoughts and concerns. When you do this consistently, you gain information and insights that remain hidden to leaders who dominate conversations while simultaneously building trust and engagement. Develop the courage to be brief. In a world of information overload, brevity is not just a courtesy, it's a leadership skill. The ability to distill complex situations into clear, concise direction sets the silent leader apart from those who hide behind verbosity and ambiguity. When you speak less, each word carries more weight. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, despite her initial shyness, became one of the most influential figures of her time, not through flamboyant rhetoric, but through quiet persistence and principled action. Her leadership during the development of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights demonstrated how moral authority, not verbal dominance, creates lasting impact. Learn to use silence strategically in discussions and negotiations. A well-timed pause can create space for reflection, signal the importance of what you've just said, or allow tensions to dissipate. The disciplined use of silence often accomplishes what additional words cannot. Embrace the principle that leadership presence doesn't require constant visibility. The most powerful leaders are often felt even when they're not physically present, through the systems they've built, the cultures they've shaped, and the people they've developed. This sustained influence, rather than momentary impact, is the true measure of leadership effectiveness. Develop your capacity for silent leadership. Speak with purpose, listen with intent, and act with conviction. Create space for others to grow. Lead through example rather than exhortation. For in doing so, you'll discover that true influence doesn't depend on the volume of your voice, but on the integrity of your character and the wisdom of your carefully chosen words, the wisdom of thoughtful response over hasty reaction. Have you ever regretted a hasty response? Said something in the heat of the moment that you later wished you could take back? Of course you have. We all have. But have you ever regretted taking time to think before responding? Probably not. This simple observation points to a profound truth. The gap between stimulus and response is where your power lies. And learning to expand this gap may be the single most valuable skill for personal and professional success. When you react immediately to a situation, you're operating from your limbic system, the emotional center of your brain responsible for fight or flight responses. These instantaneous reactions are driven by past conditioning and often reflect fear, insecurity, or unconscious biases rather than your best thinking. But when you create a pause between stimulus and response, you allow your prefrontal cortex, the seat of higher order thinking, to engage, bringing wisdom, perspective, and deliberate choice to your actions. So how do you develop this capacity for thoughtful response in your own life? Begin with the physical foundation, breathing. When faced with a triggering situation, take 3 deep breaths before saying or doing anything. This simple pause interrupts the automatic reaction cycle and creates space for more deliberate thinking. It's so simple that many overlook it, yet it's remarkably effective in shifting your mental state. Adopt the 24-hour rule for significant decisions or communications, especially those involving emotional content. Unless immediate action is absolutely necessary, give yourself at least 24 hours to reflect before responding to provocative situations. This buffer period allows emotional reactions to subside and more balanced perspectives to emerge. Florence Nightingale revolutionized healthcare through her methodical, data-driven approach during the Crimean War. Rather than reacting emotionally to the horrific conditions she encountered, she documented them meticulously, analyzed root causes, and implemented systematic solutions. Her thoughtful response saved countless lives and transformed medical practices worldwide. Practice perspective shifting to enhance the quality of your responses. When facing a challenging situation, deliberately consider it from multiple viewpoints. How might the other person be seeing this? How will this matter 5 years from now? What would my wisest mentor advise? These questions expand your thinking beyond initial reactions to more nuanced understanding. Develop response protocols. for predictable triggering situations. Just as emergency services have established procedures for crisis response, you can create personal protocols for situations that typically trigger reactive behavior. These predetermined guidelines provide a path to thoughtful action even when emotions run high. Remember that thoughtful response is not about suppressing authentic emotion, but about expressing it in ways that serve rather than sabotage your deeper intentions. The goal isn't emotional detachment, but emotional intelligence, using feelings as information rather than allowing them to dictate your actions. Cultivate the wisdom of thoughtful response in your life. Expand the gap between stimulus and response. Trade impulsive reaction for deliberate action. For in that space, that precious pause between what happens to you and what you do about it, lies the freedom to choose your path and the power to determine your results. The art of strategic patience? Probably not. Yet, in a world obsessed with instant results, strategic patience, the disciplined capacity to wait for the right moment, has become a rare and valuable skill. This isn't passive waiting or mere procrastination. It's the active, purposeful alignment of action with optimal timing that often makes the difference between extraordinary success and frustrating failure. Most people dramatically underestimate the power of timing in achievement. They rush toward their goals with relentless urgency, not realizing that forced timing often produces incomplete results or unnecessary resistance. Masters of achievement, by contrast, understand that certain outcomes cannot be hurried. They unfold according to their own natural rhythm, and attempting to accelerate them actually delays their ultimate realization. Strategic patience involves recognizing which aspects of your goals require immediate action and which require watchful waiting. It means distinguishing between the things you can control directly and those that must develop through processes you can influence but not command. This discernment separates the truly effective from those who exhaust themselves through misdirected intensity. So how do you develop this art of strategic patience in your own pursuits? Begin by distinguishing between activity and progress. Often, the appearance of movement, busyness, frequent updates, constant action creates the illusion of advancement without actually bringing you closer to meaningful outcomes. Train yourself to evaluate results rather than effort, substance rather than show. Study the natural timing of your field or industry. Every domain has its own rhythm. Periods when advancement is possible and periods when consolidation is necessary. By aligning your efforts with these natural cycles rather than fighting against them, you multiply your effectiveness while reducing unnecessary struggle. Practice what might be called strategic invisibility, the willingness to work without recognition or acclaim during preparatory phases. Many potentially great achievements are sabotaged by premature exposure when creators seek validation before their work is sufficiently developed to withstand scrutiny. The discipline to remain patient during these formative stages often determines ultimate success. The banking pioneer A.P. Giannini, who founded the Bank of America, displayed remarkable strategic patience after the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. While other banks remained closed, he immediately set up operations on the street, making loans on handshakes to help rebuild the city. This patient investment in long-term relationships, rather than short-term profit protection, established a foundation of trust that helped build one of the world's largest financial institutions. Develop comfort with incremental progress. The most enduring achievements often come not through dramatic breakthroughs, but through the patient accumulation of small advances. Each step may seem insignificant in isolation, but collectively they create momentum that eventually becomes unstoppable. Remember that strategic patience isn't passive, it's preparatory. During periods of apparent waiting, focus on building capabilities, gathering resources, and establishing conditions that will maximize your effectiveness when the moment for decisive action arrives. This productive patience creates readiness that opportunistic urgency cannot match. Cultivate the art of strategic patience in your life and work. Recognize which goals require immediate action and which demand thoughtful timing. Distinguish between the urgency of the genuinely time-sensitive and the false urgency of impatience. For in mastering this delicate balance, Knowing when to act and when to wait, you discover a dimension of achievement that remains invisible to those driven solely by the illusion of urgency. The power of deep work in the world. Have you ever ended a busy day feeling exhausted yet strangely unfulfilled, as if you were active all day but didn't accomplish anything meaningful? This common experience points to one of the greatest challenges of our time, the increasing difficulty of engaging in deep, focused work in a world engineered for constant distraction. The capacity for sustained concentration on a demanding task, what we might call deep work, has become increasingly rare at precisely the time it has become increasingly valuable. As routine tasks are increasingly automated, the ability to master complex skills, solve difficult problems, and create innovative solutions has become the primary source of competitive advantage both for individuals and organizations. Inventor Alexander Graham Bell, despite living in a much slower era, he recognized the need for undisturbed concentration and maintained a separate workspace where he could focus without interruption. This environment of protected attention enabled him to develop not just the telephone, but numerous other innovations that transformed modern communication. So how do you reclaim the power of deep work in your own life? Start by recognizing that willpower alone is insufficient. The forces pulling against sustained attention are too powerful to resist through mere discipline. Instead, you must redesign your environment to support rather than sabotage focused effort. The aircraft manufacturer Juan Trippe, who built Pan American Airways into the world's most prestigious airline, maintained a simple daily schedule despite his complex responsibilities. Each morning was reserved for deep, strategic thinking about the company's future, insulated from the urgent but less important operational matters that were handled in the afternoon. This rhythm of protected concentration, followed by managed accessibility, enabled him to simultaneously develop long-term vision and maintain operational excellence. Develop rituals that signal to your brain that it's time for deep engagement. Whether it's brewing a particular tea, arranging your workspace in a specific way, or beginning with a brief meditation, these cues help your mind transition from scattered attention to focused concentration. Over time, the ritual itself triggers the mental state required for deep work. Remember that deep work is a skill, not just a preference or a personality trait. Like any skill, it deteriorates without practice and improves with consistent training. Begin with short periods of focused concentration, perhaps just 30 minutes. And gradually extend your capacity for sustained attention through regular practice. Cultivate the power of deep work in your life. Create the conditions that support sustained concentration. Eliminate the distractions that fragment your attention. Develop the rituals that trigger your capacity for focused engagement. For in a world increasingly dominated by shallow activity and scattered attention, the ability to go deep, to concentrate intensely on challenging problems and valuable opportunities has become not just advantageous, but essential for meaningful achievement. Legacy over fame. Have you ever noticed the difference between those who chase fame and those who build legacy? The former seek immediate recognition, constant validation, and public acclaim. The latter focus on creating lasting impact, developing others, and building something that will endure long after they're gone. This distinction between the noisy pursuit of temporary visibility and the quiet construction of enduring significance represents the ultimate choice in how you approach your life and work. Fame is seductive precisely because it promises immediate rewards, attention, adulation, a sense of importance. But these rewards are both fleeting and fundamentally unsatisfying. Yesterday's celebrity is quickly forgotten. Last year's sensation becomes today's trivia question. More importantly, fame itself does nothing to address the deeper human need for meaning and significance. The sense that your life has contributed something of value that will outlast your physical presence. Legacy, by contrast, focuses not on being known, but on creating knowing, on developing ideas, systems, organizations, or people that will continue to create value long after you've departed the scene. This orientation toward lasting impact rather than immediate recognition transforms not just your results, but your entire approach to achievement. George Washington Copley, the English portrait painter, approached his work. Rather than rushing to complete as many paintings as possible for immediate income and recognition, he meticulously crafted each portrait to capture not just physical appearance, but essential character. This dedication to excellence over expedience created works that continue to communicate across centuries, a legacy that far outstrips the fame he enjoyed during his lifetime. So, how do you shift from the pursuit of fame to the building of legacy in your own life and work? Begin by extending your time horizon. When making decisions, ask not just, how will this benefit me now, but how will this matter in 20 years? This simple shift in perspective naturally aligns your choices with more enduring values and outcomes. Identify the forms of impact that continue beyond your direct involvement. Physical assets deteriorate, but knowledge compounds. Material resources deplete, but wisdom appreciates. Personal achievement reaches its limit, but developing others creates exponential growth. By focusing your energy on these legacy-creating activities, you build something that continues to grow even in your absence. Practice what might be called cathedral thinking, the willingness to contribute to projects that may not be completed within your lifetime. The medieval builders who laid the foundations of Europe's great cathedrals did so knowing they would never see the finished structure. Yet their commitment to a vision greater than their own immediate recognition enabled the creation of enduring monuments to human aspiration and craftsmanship. Develop what might be called succession consciousness, the deliberate cultivation of others who will carry forward your work. Legacy-focused individuals don't jealously guard their knowledge or position. They actively mentor those who will eventually surpass them. This multiplication of impact through others exponentially expands the reach and duration of your contribution. Remember, the true legacy is built not through grand gestures or dramatic moments, but through the consistent application of values and principles in daily choices. The accumulated effect of these choices, how you treat people, the quality you bring to your work, the priorities you establish through your actions rather than your words, creates the ultimate measure of your impact. Choose legacy over fame in your own life and work. Focus on creating value that outlasts recognition. Invest in developing people rather than impressing them. Build systems and organizations that embody your values and vision. For in the final analysis, the quality of your significance will far outweigh the quantity of your celebrity, and the impact you create will matter more than the attention you attract. The discipline of focused elimination. Have you ever noticed how the most accomplished individuals seem to do less rather than more? This isn't coincidence, it's strategy. In a world that constantly celebrates addition, more tasks, more goals, more possessions, more connections, the true masters of achievement practice the opposite approach, the discipline of focused elimination. Most people approach success through addition, constantly seeking more information, more opportunities, more connections. But this approach inevitably leads to the dilution of energy, the fragmentation of focus, and ultimately the mediocrity of results. True excellence requires not expansion, but contraction, the deliberate elimination of everything that doesn't contribute directly to your most important goals. This discipline of focused elimination isn't about merely saying no to distractions, though that's certainly part of it. It's about developing the courage to say no to good opportunities so you can say yes to great ones. It's about recognizing that in a world of infinite possibilities, what you choose not to do becomes as important as what you choose to do. Benjamin Franklin had interests spanning politics, science, publishing, and invention. He didn't pursue them all simultaneously. Instead, he focused on cultivating one virtue at a time, recognizing that trying to develop all simultaneously would lead to developing none effectively. This disciplined approach to self-improvement enabled him to make significant contributions across multiple fields over his lifetime. So how do you implement this discipline in your own life? Begin with what might be called an elimination audit, a ruthless examination of everything currently consuming your time, energy, and attention. For each activity, relationship, or commitment, ask, does this directly support my highest priorities? If not, develop a plan to eliminate it, delegate it, or dramatically reduce its claim on your resources. Practice the art of strategic abandonment, the deliberate decision to stop activities that once served you, but no longer advance your most important goals. This isn't about quitting at the first sign of difficulty. It's about recognizing when continued investment in a particular direction yields diminishing returns compared to alternative uses of your limited resources. Implement zero-based thinking in your approach to ongoing commitments and activities. Regularly ask yourself, knowing what I know now, would I choose to start this activity if I weren't already doing it? This perspective cuts through the sunk cost fallacy and helps you eliminate endeavors that no longer deserve your continued investment. Develop what might be called decision filters, clear criteria that automatically eliminate options that don't align with your core values and highest priorities. These predetermined standards prevent decision fatigue and ensure that your limited attention focuses only on choices that truly matter to your most important objectives. Remember that the discipline of focused elimination applies not just to activities, but to thoughts and emotions as well. The mental energy wasted on worry, resentment, unnecessary comparison, and other unproductive cognitive patterns drains the resources needed for exceptional achievement. Eliminating these internal distractions may yield even greater benefits than eliminating external ones. Practice the discipline of focused elimination in your life and work. Remove rather than add. Subtract rather than multiply. Focus rather than diversify. For in a world that celebrates more, the path to extraordinary results often lies in the courage to do less, but with complete commitment to what remains after everything inessential has been eliminated, the courage of conviction in a conformist world. Have you ever found yourself going along with the crowd despite a quiet inner voice telling you something different? You're not alone. The pressure to conform, to adopt the opinions, behaviors, and values of those around us represents one of the most powerful psychological forces in human experience. Yet the most significant contributions throughout history have come from those with the courage to stand apart when their convictions demanded it. This courage of conviction isn't about being contrarian for its own sake or rejecting consensus regardless of evidence. It's about developing the capacity to hear your own wisdom above the noise of popular opinion, to follow your deepest understanding, even when it leads you away from the comfort and safety of the herd. Galileo Galilei maintained his scientific convictions despite powerful opposition from both church and academic authorities. His insistence that the earth revolves around the sun, based on his own careful observations rather than established doctrine, eventually transformed our understanding of the solar system, though it came at great personal cost during his lifetime. Practice what might be called thought experiments in solitude, regularly disconnecting from external influences to consider important questions independently before seeking others' perspectives. This practice develops your capacity to generate original thinking rather than merely selecting from options presented by others. Develop comfort with being misunderstood, at least temporarily. The courage of conviction often means seeing possibilities that others don't yet recognize, or challenging assumptions that others haven't yet questioned. This inevitably creates periods where your thinking doesn't translate easily to those around you. Learning to tolerate this discomfort without abandoning your insights is essential to maintaining conviction through these challenging intervals. Practice what might be called conviction management, the art of holding firm to your core principles while remaining open to refinement based on new evidence. The courage of conviction doesn't mean rigid adherence to initial conclusion. It means maintaining fidelity to your deepest understanding as it evolves through continued experience and reflection. Remember that the courage of conviction doesn't exempt you from the responsibility of rigorous thinking. Quite the opposite. It demands even greater intellectual honesty and thoroughness precisely because you can't rely on consensus to validate your conclusions. This means actively seeking contradictory evidence, seriously considering opposing viewpoints, and constantly testing your thinking against reality. Develop the courage of conviction in your life and work. Listen to your own wisdom above the noise of the crowd. Follow your deepest understanding, even when it leads you away from consensus. Hold to your principles, even when it would be easier to conform. For in a world where most people outsource their thinking to the group, the courage to stand apart when your conviction demands it may be the most powerful form of silent strength you can develop. The integrity of action and values. Have you ever known someone whose every action seemed perfectly aligned with their stated values? Someone whose words and deeds were so consistent that they emanated a kind of unshakable integrity? These rare individuals possess something more powerful than charisma, more compelling than eloquence, and more influential than authority. They embody the integrity of alignment between what they say, what they do, and what they truly believe. In a world where inconsistency has become the norm, where leaders say one thing while doing another, where organizations proclaim values they don't practice, where individuals present carefully curated images that bear little resemblance to their actual lives, this alignment has become both exceedingly rare and extraordinarily valuable. The power of this integrity doesn't come from perfection, but from congruence, the seamless connection between inner values and outer expression. This alignment creates a kind of presence that commands respect without demanding it. When your words, actions, and values form a consistent whole, you communicate not just with what you say, but with who you are. This integrity becomes a silent form of influence, more persuasive than any argument and more enduring than any temporary authority. So how do you develop this integrity of alignment in your own life? Begin with clarity about your actual values, not the values you think you should have or want others to believe you have, but the principles that genuinely guide your choices when no one is watching. This honest self-assessment establishes the foundation upon which meaningful alignment can be built. Practice what might be called congruence checking, regularly examining the gap between your stated principles and your actual behaviors. This isn't about harsh self-judgment, but about identifying areas where unconscious hypocrisy may be undermining your integrity and effectiveness. When you discover misalignment, choose either to adjust your actions to match your stated values or to honestly revise your stated values to reflect your actual priorities. Develop the habit of under-promising and over-delivering rather than the reverse. The integrity of alignment isn't about grand declarations or ambitious commitments. It's about establishing expectations that you can consistently exceed. This approach builds trust progressively through demonstrated reliability rather than assumed credibility. Practice what might be called private integrity, maintaining alignment between your values and actions, even in situations where no one would know if you compromise. This consistency between public and private behavior develops the kind of character that doesn't depend on external accountability to maintain its integrity. Remember that the integrity of alignment isn't primarily about reputation management. It's about internal coherence. When your words, actions, and values align, you experience a sense of wholeness and authenticity that eliminates the psychological drain of maintaining inconsistent versions of yourself in different contexts. This integration releases energy that would otherwise be consumed by the cognitive dissonance of misalignment. Cultivate the integrity of alignment in your life and work. Ensure that your words match your actions and that both reflect your deepest values. Close the gaps between what you say, what you do, and what you believe. For in this congruence lies a power that transcends technique, the quiet, compelling influence of a life that speaks the truth, not just with words, but with its very existence. The wisdom of reflective intervals. Have you ever noticed that your best insights rarely come during your busiest moments? That the solutions to your most challenging problems often emerge not when you're actively working on them, but during quiet moments afterward. This isn't coincidence. It's your brain functioning as designed, utilizing what might be called reflective intervals to process experience into wisdom. In our hyperactive culture, continuous activity has become almost a moral virtue. We celebrate the nonstop hustle, the 24/7 grind, the relentless pursuit of more. Yet this constant motion creates a serious problem. Without regular intervals for reflection, experience doesn't translate into understanding. You accumulate years of activity without gaining corresponding wisdom if you never pause to integrate what you've learned. These reflective intervals, deliberate periods of stepping back from activity to consider its meaning and implications, serve as the essential bridge between mere experience and genuine understanding. They transform what would otherwise be a collection of disconnected events into a coherent narrative of growth and development. In a very real sense, you don't learn from experience itself, you learn from reflecting on experience. So how do you incorporate these reflective intervals into your own demanding schedule? Begin by recognizing that reflection isn't leisure or idleness, it's essential cognitive work that deserves dedicated time in your calendar. Schedule short daily periods and longer weekly sessions specifically for reflective thinking, treating these appointments with yourself as seriously as you would meetings with your most important clients or colleagues. Practice what might be called structured reflection, approaching your thinking time with specific questions rather than vague intentions. Ask yourself, what went well this week and why? What didn't go as planned and what can I learn from that? What patterns am I noticing? What assumptions am I making that might need testing? These focused questions yield more valuable insights than unstructured contemplation. Develop physical environments that support effective reflection. Create spaces specifically designed for contemplative thinking, whether a special chair, a particular walking route, or a dedicated room where you won't be interrupted and where your brain learns to associate the setting with deeper thought. These environmental cues help your mind transition quickly into reflective mode. Practice what might be called reflection partnering. Regular conversations with a trusted colleague, mentor, or friend specifically focused on processing experiences into insights. These dialogues often surface realizations that might remain hidden in solitary reflection, as verbalization requires clarity that silent thought sometimes circumvents. Remember that reflection requires a certain quality of attention different from both active problem solving and passive relaxation. It goes from overwhelm to discernment. It involves holding experiences in awareness without immediately analyzing or judging them, creating space for connections and patterns to emerge organically rather than forcing conclusions. Developing this reflective attention is itself a skill that improves with practice. Incorporate reflective intervals into your life and work. Schedule regular periods for thoughtful consideration of your experiences. Create environments conducive to deep thinking. Develop questions that guide your reflection toward valuable insights, for in these deliberate pauses, these spaces between action and more action, lies the essential process through which mere activity transforms into genuine achievement and information evolves into wisdom. Beyond success to significance. Have you ever considered the difference between a successful life and a significant one? Between achieving goals and creating lasting value? Between building a career and crafting a legacy? This distinction between success defined by what you accumulate and significance measured by what you contribute represents the ultimate question facing every person of achievement. Many people reach a point in their journey where conventional success no longer satisfies. The promotion, the profit, the recognition that once motivated them now feels somehow hollow. This isn't failure, it's evolution. It signals readiness for the transition from success to significance, from achieving for yourself to contributing something enduring that benefits others. This evolution doesn't mean abandoning achievement, it means transforming its purpose. It shifts focus from what you can get to what you can give, from what you can possess to what you can provide, from how you can advance to how you can elevate others. This reorientation towards significance doesn't diminish success, it transcends it, creating a legacy of contribution that continues long after conventional achievements have been forgotten. So how do you make this transition in your own life and work? Begin by conducting what might be called a contribution audit, an honest assessment of the impact your current activities have on others. Are you primarily taking value or creating it? Are you mostly extracting benefit from existing systems or improving those systems for everyone who uses them? This clear-eyed evaluation establishes your baseline for evolving toward greater significance. Practice what might be called legacy thinking, regularly considering how your current choices might influence people and conditions long after you're gone. This extended time horizon naturally shifts focus from quarterly results to generational impact, from temporary advantage to enduring contribution. Develop your capacity for what might be called contribution innovation, applying your unique capabilities and resources to address significant needs or opportunities that others have overlooked. Just as business innovation creates new value in the marketplace, contribution innovation creates new forms of impact in communities, environments, or institutions that matter to you. Practice what might be called significance partnering, strategically collaborating with others whose complementary capabilities can multiply your impact. Just as business partnerships create greater commercial value than isolated effort, purposeful alliances focused on contribution create exponentially greater significance than individual initiatives. The physician Alice Hamilton. After achieving professional success as one of the first female doctors in America, devoted herself to the then unrecognized field of industrial medicine. Through meticulous research on workplace toxins and tireless advocacy for safety regulations, she saved countless lives and established occupational health as an essential medical specialty, creating significance far beyond her individual medical practice. Remember that the transition from success to significance doesn't require grand gestures or complete career reinvention. It often begins with small shifts in how you approach your existing work and relations. When you start focusing on the impact of your actions rather than just their rewards, when you begin measuring your achievement by contribution rather than just compensation, you've already begun the journey towards significance. Embrace the evolution from success to significance in your own journey. Look beyond achievement to contribution. Expand your focus from accumulation to allocation. Shift your energy from getting to giving. For in this transition, this progression from building personal success to creating lasting significance, lies the ultimate fulfillment of your potential and the true measure of your life's value. Let your actions speak volumes. In a world full of noise, your silence becomes your strength. Speak only when it adds value, otherwise dominate with quiet execution. Focus, build, win. Every move you make in silence brings you closer to victory. Speak less, do more. Power belongs to the quiet achievers.